is so wonderful to be on stage with you tonight. Like many fans in this audience, Gilmore Girls has been a comfort show for me and for my twin sister since we were in high school. Netflix has allowed us to rewatch the series more times than I would like to admit. And it's even been an inspiration for some of our Halloween costumes. But I'm not here to embarrass myself. We're here to talk about you.
You just did.
Oh, I did. We're here to talk about you and the Third Gilmore Girl, which I loved. It was funny, it was honest, and it just gave me insights into parts of your career that I did not know before. And it's a storied career. You've danced, you've acted on Broadway, on TV, and movies, and when I think about memoirs of recent years, a lot of them have been written by people in their 20s and 30s, and the act of writing a memoir at 80 means you have more to reflect on. What was this reflection process like for you?
It was quite amazing and really gratifying. I have to tell you, I enjoyed doing this a lot. A lot of people throughout the years had said to me, Kelly, you should write a book. And again, why don't you write a book? Kelly, you should write a book. And I finally said, I'm talking too much. They're trying to say, just shut up and write a book. But they kept saying it. And then a literary media company came to me and my agent and sat down and pitched the idea of my writing a book, and gave us the rundown and said, we can help you find a publisher, and if you want a co-writer, we can, which I did, because I'm not a writer. I wouldn't know how to structure a book. I can tell a story, and I love reading, and I love books, but I wouldn't even know how to begin. So we went through the whole process, and I had a wonderful time working on it, remembering things, finding some extra stuff that I had kind of forgotten, but not really. So it was really a joyful process. It didn't seem hard at all for me, and I'm so pleased the way it came out, and I'm especially pleased. The one thing that worried me when it was all written and said and done and published was, what if it's not a very good book? But people seem to like it, and I'm delighted by it. And the fact that people say, why are you doing it now? Well, I mean, that was the reason why. But yeah, I am 80, and how much longer do I have, number one, to write it? And I have all of these years. I mean, I've been in the business now for 62 years, which is astonishing. Mm-hmm. It really is. Yeah. I mean, thank you. But it really is, and I've always wanted to work. I love to work, and I've always said I want to work until literally the day I die. And somehow, so far it's working. We'll see if I'm working the day I die. We'll find out.
So ballet in particular was such a huge part of your childhood and your early career on stage before you started to shift more into acting. In the book, there's this lovely photo of you in 1957 at the Ballet Theater School when you were 13. I just love that. What memories does this image bring up for you?
Well, that was a wonderful ballet school. It was in Denver, Colorado. And fortunately, somehow this happens throughout my life, and I'm just grateful constantly. I had a pediatrician whose daughters were ballet dancers, were studying ballet. One of them ended up going into American Ballet Theater. And somehow, I don't know how he finagled this, but American Ballet Theater, the company, decided to open a branch in Denver, Colorado. And in doing that, along came all of these wonderful teachers, particularly my teacher, Dmitry Romanoff, and his wife, Francesca. But even in the summertime, like I remember Igor Yuskevich, who was a major ballet dancer with American Ballet Theater, came and taught a few classes during the summer sessions. We were just given so much information, great training, and it just came to where I was. It was a great school. I learned so much. Very serious Russian ballet. You didn't, there was character dancing. There certainly wasn't anything remotely like jazz, and we wouldn't even talk about tap. It's so tacky. So I really had a great chance to really learn ballet from wonderful, wonderful teachers. So that's how it happened. I don't know.
How do you think your ballet background helped make you a better actor?
I think that, first of all, it's a physical life. So you're really in touch with your body. You have to be with every part of it. And you can say so much because it's a nonverbal art form with your body, with your posture, with your attitude. We've all seen people do it. We've all done it ourselves. That you can indicate something just by standing a certain way. And so you have that. And then if you're going to take it into acting, I always bring, how does this character stand? Is she insecure? Is she very proud? Is she, whatever it might be. But you could do a lot of acting with your body that you don't even have to open your mouth to achieve. You really can.
And I think that really shows in some of the roles, too, that you were able to bring to the stage. You had a really special relationship with your mother, which you detail throughout the book, and she was the one who really advocated for you to get into ballet and to go to that school. And there was a conversation you talked about that shaped the song from a chorus line at the ballet. We're going to play a short clip from that now.
Okay.
Life with my dad wasn't ever a picnic, more like a come as you are. When I was 5, I remember my mother dog earrings out of the car. I knew that they weren't hers, but it wasn't something you'd want to discuss. He wasn't warm. Well, not to her. Well, not to us. But everything was beautiful at the ballet. Graceful men lift lovely girls in white. Yes, everything was beautiful at the ballet. Hey, I was happy at the ballet.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
It's great.
I don't sing anymore. I wonder why. Yeah. Boy, but that did me when the music changed from he wasn't warm, well, not to her, well, not to us, and there's that the underscoring in a chorus line, and people don't know this. It is fully underscored. That entire show is, until you get to the section of, those of you who know a chorus line, the section of, I think the character's name is Paul. It's the young man who was a drag queen that, he has his own real monologue. The whole rest of the cast has left the stage. That is quiet. But the entire rest of the show is underscored. And when that little transition went into and I got chills because it's the most beautiful song for my money in that show, and so unique. And of course, it touched me when I was doing it, and always will, because it was my life. Even including the second part, which understandably it was a trio, which is the only reason I could dare to be brave enough to even sing it, was the second part of it was Mother always thought I'd be very attractive when I grew up, and that was me too. that I asked my mom, are you going to ask me about that one?
Yes,
Okay.
You cued me up perfectly. So the quote is that you ask her if you're pretty, and your mom replies, "You'll be very different, you'll be dramatic, and you'll have a lot of flair." And at the time, you were disappointed by that answer because as women and as girls, we sometimes think to be successful and loved means you need to be pretty, and you want to hear that from people. Now, as an adult, looking back on that answer, do you hear it the same, or do you think of it as more of a compliment?
Well, no, it's fine. And what she was doing, because she was such a brutally, gently honest woman. There's nothing actually brutal about her. She was remarkable, but she always told the truth. You would not get a lie out of her. She just, if you ask the question, you got to be ready for the answer. And for years, my husband Lee, my love, I would make some comment about the way I looked, or I do it. I probably still do it, but he'd say, "That's the worst thing she ever said to you," because I mean that's what I wanted. It was Doris Day had a big hit called "Que Sera Sera," and as "Will I be pretty? Will I be rich?" And here's what she said to me. Hey, said and so that's why I asked it, because the song was popular at the time. So I just thought she would say something like, maybe "Que Sera Sera," but she didn't. She said, "No, you'll be very interesting. You'll be different."
You're like, "Thanks, Mom."
But yeah. But I have decided in the process of living my life that that's really okay not to be pretty. I mean, we all would love to be pretty. And the first time I saw Alexis Bledel, when she walked on set, it actually took my breath away. She was so beautiful. I mean, just exquisite. And I've decided since then that those of us who aren't pretty like that, and there are not that many people who are that exquisitely beautiful, we have to work a little harder, and we do have to have more personality, and we do have to have more things that make us attractive. And so that's actually a good thing, because I think really, really pretty people just have to stand in a room and everybody stares at them and they get all the attention they want, or attention they don't want. Just because they're so darn pretty, you can't take your eyes off of them, So it's fine. I'm okay with it.
So the resolution of the clip we just played was admittedly not the greatest, but I love this photo of you from A Chorus Line.
Oh.
So, at first, you didn't really like that iconic nude leotard. What was it like to be in that costume night after night?
Yeah, it's okay. Well, I'll tell you one thing is you could not sweat in it. You could not sweat, because that leotard, it was made by Milliken Fabric Company, but it was called Milliken, this particular fabric. And if it got wet, it would turn about 5 or 6 shades darker. I mean, really. I remember the young woman who replaced me in the show, and she was, of course you're going to sweat. It's terrifying to, be out there. And her armpits were like brown. And I said to her, pulled her aside, and because I said, this is what I did for the whole show, which is probably not very good for your body, but I wore, what is that now, Mitchum? Or there's some kind of a deodorant that's almost like a block. Oh. It's like plastic. And I know it's not good because it would block your pores and everything else, but I was going to be damned if I was going to sweat in that leotard. You're not going to see that. I mean, that would ruin Sheila, wouldn't it? I mean, Sheila would never let that happen, so I wouldn't let it happen. But yeah, I really, boy, that leotard is so unforgiving. Oh, man. Yeah.
I mean, in the end, worth it. The leotard and the performance in A Chorus Line landed you a Tony. And this picture that we're pulling up, it also marked your first encounter with Ed Herman, who played the Richard Gilmore. And we will come back to Ed, I promise. But I love this shot. And so you won a Tony for A Chorus Line, but we have an audience question here, which is, what was the wildest onstage flub or audience moment you remember from A Chorus Line?
Oh, my goodness. Flub or
like a mistake?
I think there was one night when the lights went out completely.
Ooh.
And we managed to stay on stage. They came back fairly soon, but nobody knows what to do. Do you leave the stage? And then they came back on. we were pretty tight in that show. We rehearsed that show forever. We started as a workshop, just exploring what it was, and Michael Bennett was just brilliant. Anyway, and he was determined he was going to make a show out of this. And then when he got enough money from the Shakespeare Festival, Joseph Papp, he was able to put it into rehearsals, but it still needed more time. So then he had to go to another person, a woman named Lou Esther Mertz, who was a very wealthy donator to all sorts of art projects, and got enough money. We literally rehearsed that show for 15 weeks. You never do that. I mean, these days, if you have a lot of money in the production and producers willing to give it, you can get 4 weeks. If you're really, really lucky, 5 weeks. And we had 15 weeks.
That's amazing.
Genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In what ways do you think Sheila changed your life?
Well, just doing that. First of all, I was really flattered that Michael Bennett had chosen to make Sheila one of the featured characters in the show. So I'd had a monologue before they wrote out the ballet, where I basically did all the same stuff. And then they wrote out the ballet, which was, I still say, the most beautiful song in the show. And it opened up the doors to my acting career, because from my point of view, I was really looking to make the transition from dancing into acting. But as I knew, and you just learned, I wasn't a singer. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Because the way to move up is you move from the chorus, you get into principal roles in a musical, and then you graduate up. I didn't think anyone would take me seriously as a straight actor, because who is she? She's a dancer. She's Broadway. So that was sort of the hope, but I didn't know what to do about the singing. And with this show, suddenly I was an actor. I was doing a play in my mind, really, I was doing a show about dancers, but that it was a play and I was acting. And so that's what gave me that chance, and enough people saw it, I won a Tony Award. I did not expect to win it, but boy, that's incredible.
Truly incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You've mentioned Michael Bennett a couple times now, and I'm going to jump ahead because I have a question about him too. You alluded to a strained relationship, and that it wasn't really heard of back then to stand up to a male authority figure and then still have them go to bat for you after. Can you describe the pendulum of that relationship, the obvious respect, but also friction?
It was interesting, you don't usually. First of all, any of you who've done ballet or probably any kind of dancing, you keep quiet. The teacher is the ruler, and you do what you can. You do as well as you can. But even if you feel that your feelings are hurt or you've been wronged in some way, you don't say anything. You maybe go back into the girls' dressing room and cry or something like that. But you don't say anything. And there was something about me at that point in my life when I finally started working with Michael Bennett that I wasn't going to get pushed around anymore. It's weird, but I think I put it in the book about the time I stopped rehearsal. Because he laughed at me, and I'm going, don't stand there and laugh at me. Tell me if I'm making a mistake, if I look stupid, to do something, but don't stand there and demean me. Mm-hmm. So I called him out on it.
Well, and I feel like, I loved that moment, and I feel like that has happened multiple times throughout your whole life. We have that time where you were really demanding that dancers be called women instead of girls. There was the time on the train or the subway where you were groped, and instead of kind of being quiet and afraid, you call out this man on this heinous act. And so all of this to say, you are unapologetically standing up for yourself throughout your life. How do you think that quality has changed the trajectory of your career?
Well, it probably has given me more opportunity to play stronger roles. Mm-hmm. The fact that it's something it took a while, as you evolve, as you go through life, and you start to realize that really the only person who's going to stand up for you is you. And the only person, I said this to someone the other day who was asking about, saying when you say you love yourself, and I said, you must love yourself, because how's anybody else going to love you if you don't love yourself first? That's the first person. And I'm not talking about, preening in front of a mirror. I'm talking about really embracing yourself and caring for yourself. And if you don't, this woman had asked me, she said, but what if you don't love yourself? I said, then you find out, go through your life, or go through yourself, your psyche, and figure out what it is you don't like about yourself and fix it. Stop doing it, change it. But and then I feel the same way about speaking up. And women have to, because we spent too many generations and thousands of years letting men speak for us, and we. And it feels good. It feels good to get it out. Yeah.
Do you have any other particular mantras or phrases that have helped you navigate kind of hard times or difficult situations?
I don't really have any kind of phrase, but no, I just respond to what's happening right in my face, and
Cool.
and they'll get it back.
Great. That was an audience question too. I forgot to acknowledge that earlier. So I want to take us to an exceptionally personal section of the book, when you talk about having an abortion and your decision to have tubal ligation. About 8 or so years later, you're in Dirty Dancing, which has a main storyline that focuses on abortion. How, if at all, did that storyline affect you?
I thought it was absolutely wonderful that it went in, because the way that show, Dirty Dancing, was written about a particular time in America, in American life, and that's she really nailed it. Eleanor Bergstein, right? Isn't it? Yeah. And I actually had forgotten about that. I hadn't seen Dirty Dancing for a while, and I think someone played a clip for me when I was doing an interview, not on stage, but a television thing, and they showed that little section, and I'm going, right. That's so important that that's in there. Mm-hmm. And that's also in the book. Frankly, when Roe v. Wade was crushed, I would talk to my writer every week. She was in California. I didn't even meet her for 2 years, face to face, and we would talk for a long time to work on the book. But then she turned off the recorder, and we'd talk for another half hour about dogs and stuff like that. And when that happened with Roe v. Wade, next time I talked to her on the phone, I said, I want to put in the abortion. I was not going to initially, because it's private, and I didn't see that it had any reason to be there. But when that came out, or when that happened, and then I started seeing other actors come out and do, I did, and that's pretty much all you'd hear. And I said, I want to put it in there because I not only want to say I did, I want to explain what I experienced, because I was really it's very sad, it's very regrettable, but I don't regret it. But they were they showed such dignity and respect to me. Mm-hmm. The way the whole thing was handled, I was so impressed at the time that I and every other woman there was being treated that way. And as far as I'm concerned, the fetus as well. This is serious business, and that's why they made you wait. They really counsel you. I had a long interview with a young woman when I went in and introduced my desire. I was really impressed. I thought it was handled so beautifully. And actually, that organization, there's so many women's organizations, and there's NARAL and all sorts of other organizations. But the title, Planned Parenthood, is brilliant. And it's been around for, 60, 70 years at least? Mm-hmm. But what a great name, because that's exactly what it is, mm-hmm. Planned Parenthood. So I'm glad I put it in there.
No, I think it's so moving, and it's something that feels extra pertinent. You mentioned the overturning of Roe v. Wade. What are your thoughts on where we are headed when it comes to women's rights and bodily autonomy as a country?
boy, do we have a fight on our hands. I'm telling you, I think that I'm horribly disappointed by what's happened. I remember being so exhilarated when the real women's movement came along, and there was a whole change in the attitude towards women and women's attitudes towards themselves and as a group. And I thought, okay, we're on our way. And I really did. And I felt very confident with all of the other misogynistic and otherwise things that happen throughout life. I still thought we're on our way, we're moving, this is happening. And then that happened, and it really crushed me. And it makes me worry, as I call it, about my little sisters. That was a right, that was a law, and it was ours, and it wasn't frivolous, and it's still baffling to me that it's gone. But we will get it back, because we're a lot stronger than they think we are. Yeah.
Great. And the little birdies in my ear just told me that Planned Parenthood was actually founded in 1916, so 108 years ago. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
When you think about the women's vote, wasn't that 1917? Wasn't that when women got the vote? Okay, thank you. That's how strong were those women walking around those uncomfortable outfits?
Fighting for a cause.
No, they, and that's who we have to remember when we fight for ourselves. We have to remember those women. They fought hard.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that kind of brings me to my next question about women and female friendships. You've had so many strong, kind, talented women in your life, personally and professionally. You have Priscilla Lopez, Lauren Graham, Amy Sherman Palladino, kind neighbors that you write about in the book. Why is there such special power in female friendships?
I think we're a lot more honest with each other, woman to woman. I wonder about what men say just to each other. I know they can do the supervision, they can do the cars and the sports and the thing like that. I don't know if they allow themselves. I'm talking about straight men. I'm sure gay men are much more comfortable with, being warm and fuzzy. But I don't know if they have the advantage of really pouring their hearts out to each other. I'm sure it happens. I like men a lot, so don't get me wrong on that. But women are just by nature just so much more emotionally available, and especially to one another. And it's so comforting when you can talk to a woman who really gets what you're saying, and you could do the same for her. I have a new phrase with women, but I think it can apply to anyone. When I'm talking to a woman who is friendly enough to me that I know her well, and she'll say, I met this guy, and he's just great, and we've been seeing each other for 2 months, and I think it's really going to go someplace, and they go through the whole thing, and I go, okay, I have one question for you. I don't want you to answer me. I want you to answer yourself. Is he worthy of you? And then I leave it alone. But the other thing is, I've discovered that's really true of friendship too. It doesn't have to be romantic. It's true of friends. Whatever a guy friend and a gal friend, or two women friends, or whatever it is. That's something that we should kind of keep in our minds. If this person is constantly hurting you or putting you down or making you feel insecure, revisit that. I don't think this person's worthy of my love.
I think that if we all take one thing away from tonight, it should be that question. That is so strong. Speaking of Lauren and Amy and friendships, I am going to transition us to Gilmore Girls. I think one of the most beautiful parts of the show is just how it's become a place of connection for many mothers and daughters in particular, myself included. Me and my sister and my mom and my dad, he would say he wasn't watching. He's here. He was watching and he loves it. But we'd all just sit and watch Gilmore Girls I can't remember if it was like Tuesday or Wednesday on the WB. And then we'd call my Nana, who was watching from her apartment, and we would debrief on the episode. And it was just like such a lovely weekly tradition, especially as a teenager to have. And I think of now where Netflix has given the show such a resurgence that there's this whole other generation of moms and daughters and their grandmothers all rewatching the show again or watching it for the first time. How does that make you feel?
I'm so happy about that. I wish we made money off of it. We don't. But it was such a good show. I was always proud of it. Stage actors are a little snobbish about television. And so what we would do, or my plan always was, and I managed to pull it off, is to work on stage, or hopefully on Broadway, but on stage, and then you get a pilot. And so you go to California, and they would pay you a bunch of money, and you do the pilot, and they paid you a lot of money for the pilot because they were able to hold you and keep you from doing any other pilots for a given period of time. So you got the money, and then you can go back and do real theater, and so that's kind of the way we always approach television. But by the time I read the script for Gilmore Girls, I saw that there was something incredibly good there, something I'd never seen before. And as in working on it, I was so proud of it. I could really hold my head up and say, I'm doing a television show, and I mean, the writing, we all know it. The writing's brilliant and fast and funny, and I will say it as a compliment to all of you. The smarter you are, the more you like the show, because it demands a certain amount of intelligence. It really does, So the fact that it's come back, and there are these new generations of people seeing it and not only enjoying it, but learning from it. I mean, I love that relationship. I've spoken to many women just casually, especially when the show was first on. A woman stopped me in the grocery store because she heard me talk. I keep my mouth shut. I'm cool. It's my voice.
It's a recognizable voice.
I know. And so she turned around to me in the bread aisle or something and said, Are you Emily Gilmore? And I said, yes, I am. And she said that she and her daughter, and of course, then I would have to know how old the daughter was. And then I asked her, and I've asked several other mothers and daughters throughout the years, I said, did you find in watching that show together that it brought you closer? Your relationship changed when you could see the Lorelai-Rory relationship, and she said, yes, it has. And that's the thing I'd like to see. And then then you have the grandmother. She's something else altogether, and you see that relationship. Poor.
She's something else.
Yeah.
And we're gonna actually have a clip now play that kind of shows just how iconic Emily Gilmore actually is.
Oh dear.
What are you doing?
I'm looking for my European luggage, which some imbecile has chosen to hide from me.
What do you need your European luggage for?
To put things in.
Well, you're making a mess.
I don't care if I'm making a mess.
Well, who's going to clean all this up? You?
Yes, me, or the maid. Or perhaps Penelon Lott can come by after one of your clandestine luncheons and take a stab at it.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, not that again. She's just a friend.
I am going to Europe, Richard. I'm going to Europe, and I'm going to have a marvelous time. I'm going to get up at 10, and I'm going to have 2 glasses of wine at lunch every single day.
Only prostitutes have 2 glasses of wine at lunch.
Well, then buy me a boa and drive me to Reno, because I am open for business.
I can't talk to you when you're like this. I'm going to bed.
You go to bed, I'll go to France.
I didn't write it. It's amazing. Yeah.
So you've played, as you have described, unpleasant, wealthy women before. And you say that they're really fun to act, but maybe you don't love these women in real life. What went into taking Emily off of this like hilarious and well-written script pages and then bringing her to life?
Oh, it's that's such great fun. I mean, well, first of all, that writing is so good, and when you get the opportunity to do it, I do it full force. In a peculiar way, it's horrible to say. It was easy. It just came so naturally because it's so beautifully structured. And of course, I knew who Emily Gilmore was, and the more fun I could have with her, the better. And yes, I don't like women like that, which is why I go full force into them. I want to really make them look awful.
Well, but even though she's so like savage and cutting, she's also one of the most beloved characters on the show because of all of her deep facets and vulnerabilities. And I really want to know about the subtext that you created for yourself in order to address the complexities of that character.
Well, I explored it for myself, and I didn't ask questions. I decided that there had to be a certain amount of vulnerability in her. This would just be true of any person because there was clearly a front there, and she wasn't a phony. I mean, she was part of that whole DAR world and embraced it completely, but it was still a front. You saw the way she dressed. You saw the way she behaved. You saw what her expectations of her daughter and her granddaughter were. So there had to be other things going on in that character. And finally, after a couple of years, Amy started to put a little bit more vulnerability in. That's not even quite that big a word. A little more sensitivity into. I was going to say Sheila, into Emily. So I was right. I mean, there were a couple of questions I'd had for her earlier on, and I thought I'm not going to ask them. But in later years, she answered those questions for me, and I had been right on the money. Because to me, that character spoke so clearly to me that I really didn't have to worry about how to play her. I just kind of knew her from the moment I read the page. I just knew it.
We have a great audience question as a follow-up to this. How has being a strong woman in real life helped shape or influence the characters that you play, including Emily?
Well, I'm kind of wondering if maybe the strong characters I played helped to make me a strong woman. I think, well, if you're going to live your life and you're going to live it successfully and then therefore happily, you have to be strong and you have to take care of yourself. And I think the characters may have influenced me as much as I did them, really. Because some of them have said things I would never say. I would never have the courage to say to someone else. But yeah, they helped me.
We have another audience question. Catherine asks, who is Emily Gilmore to you? What motivates her and makes her tick?
Well, her whole thing is to be a really good wife and on the front a very good mother, for her friends. But can you imagine what she went through when Lorelai got pregnant at 16? In that life, in that family, in that world. And then apparently, and I didn't even learn this until many episodes later because it was in an episode, then apparently Lorelai took off. I mean, and we didn't know where to find her. What was the question exactly?
It's what makes Emily tick? What does she mean to you? Or
yeah. Well, what she means to me was a really good part to play, but really, really good. I think what makes her tick is she's striving for perfection, which I suppose all of us do in life in some way, with hopefully the understanding that we're not going to reach there, or any bitterness because we haven't reached there. I think that's what she's trying for, is perfection, and that's has a lot to do with why she wanted to renew that friendship with Lorelai in order to get to Rory. It's a lot of it's a front.
Yeah, for sure. Now, most people here know Emily is married to Richard Gilmore, played by the late Ed Herman. You two developed a really close relationship over the 7 years of shooting, to the point where Ed referred to you as his one of his 3 wives. I want to show a clip from the 100th episode of Gilmore Girls that really feels like such a special moment for not only your characters, but you two as actors.
Okay.
On behalf of myself and my second wife, Emily, I would like to thank you all for coming here to help us celebrate. You are good friends, and we are very, very lucky. Now, in planning our traditional first dance, I gave a lot of thought to the song that would represent the next phase in our marriage. The best phase in our marriage, I believe. I went over all the greats, Bennett, Sinatra, Chuck Berry, and a story popped into my head. Now, most of you know my daughter, Lorelei. When Lorelei was 3, she went through a period of having chronic ear infections. It was terrible. Screaming all night long. We couldn't keep a nanny longer than a week.
Yeah, that was the terrible part about it. The searing pain was just a side note.
So it fell to Emily to sit with her all night long. She tried everything to calm her down. Finally, she found a song that seemed to soothe her. It was a popular song on the radio, and it soon became Emily's favorite. Of course, it drove me crazy. Some woman complaining about how she wanted to marry a man named Bill. Not exactly Cole Porter. Emily would tease me, saying, if only your name was Bill, then this could be our song. Well, Emily, for tonight, and tonight only, my name is Bill, and this is our song. Hit the button, John. Your hand, madam.
I cannot believe you remember this song.
Oh, I love that guy. Yeah.
That scene gets me every time.
Yeah.
The experience level of the actors really varied on Gilmore Girls, with Alexis being brand new to acting, and you and Ed were seasoned vets at this point. How did it feel to be not only the matriarch and patriarch on the show, but also in the cast?
Well, I just loved working with him. We just sort of understood each other, and it probably was in a way from a theatrical point of view. And of course, I tell that story in the book about. Should I say it again?
Go for it, yeah.
Because when you're doing a television show or a film, I mean, and you're called to set, you're in your trailer, and the PA comes around and it's time, everybody's set, please. And like good little theater actors, Ed and I would gather our whatever we're going to take to set with us, and walk over to the set, and usually we're sitting at that dining room table staring at each other down the way. And but I find with other actors who are normally just film actors or camera actors, they hear the call to set, and then they use the ladies' room, and then they'll maybe call their agent and make sure I would learn about that other job, and then they'll try on a little outfit, and then they'll get to set. And I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration, or maybe not. And we would sit there and look around and sit. And then that's the day I finally looked at him. And what we would do, we'd get there and we'd sit down at opposite ends. So we'd exchange a few words, but mostly we were looking at our lines. Even though we knew our lines, I always had them with me. Usually sit on them, look at them, sit on them, and then do the scene. And then when the scene's over, very often you pick it up and you look at it again, and you just kind of do that the whole time. And he was basically doing the same thing. And then we got past that moment, and we're still sitting there. And I looked down the table at him, and I said, "Are we assholes or what?" And he looked at me and said, "We're theater actors." That's right, we are.
We're going to do a little Gilmore Girls speed round now, a little rapid fire. And I'm going to throw in some audience questions, too. So if you have them, remember the Slido code is Bishop. But I'm going to kick us off. And only fitting for the background during this is a picture of the cast from season 1. So we're going to pull up that photo. Okay, ready? Here we go.
Okay.
Outside of the main character cast, who is your favorite Gilmore Girls character?
Lorelei. Oh, you mean outside?
Yeah.
In that environment, though?
Just any of the Stars Hollow residents.
Well, I have to say, just because I love her so much anyway, was Carole King. Seeing Carole King come on. I mean, I never worked with her, but I love her. And she spells her Carol with an E too, so that helps.
What do you think of Rory's character arc?
I find it very interesting. I mean, I did like the arc. When we got to those last 4 episodes, A Year in the Life, I had hoped that she had been more successful by then. So that disappointed me a little bit. I'm not too sure. I really thought that she was going to pursue that journalistic career more successfully. So I don't know, and Amy didn't discuss that with me. I don't know why.
If you got to host an Emily Gilmore Friday night dinner, what would be on the menu?
If I were to cook?
If you were to host it. Emily does not cook.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm going. To host a Friday night dinner?
Yeah, what would you put on the menu?
I would probably put filet mignon, green beans, perfectly done mashed potatoes, and some kind of incredible dessert. I don't know what it would be.
And what would you order at Luke's?
A cup of coffee.
Atta girl. Winter, spring, summer, fall. What's the best season in Stars Hollow?
I think it's fall. I don't know why. I just think it is. And I would have to go back and then look at the seasons and see what they were.
I agree. I think every other answer is wrong. That was right. And this is a little bit more broad. What's your preference, stage or screen?
Oh, screen now. I just don't have, in a way, the courage, but it's really more the will to do 8 shows a week and with 1 day off. It's hard. And 3 of them are matinees. And by the way, I like matinee audiences. Used to hate them because we like to go out and party and play at night. I'm talking more about when I was a dancer. But, and then you have to get up and you have to go into the theater and do your matinee and the whole thing. And then when I became an actor and I was a little more reserved in my partying, I realized that matinee audiences are there because they really want to be there. The evening audiences, very often you get the spouse, the partner that goes to the show, and on Friday nights it was the worst. These poor guys usually had worked a whole week and then they gone out to dinner with friends and had 2 drinks and he had to sit there and watch a show, So I began to really love matinee audiences, but I just don't have the desire anymore. I'm not going to say never because you don't know. But I really, once I got used to camera work, I really kind of fell in love with it, first of all, because you can do 10 takes. That helps. But you can be much more subtle. You can be much more real in front of a camera than you can when you're projecting. It's just the way it is.
And so after 7 seasons of Gilmore Girls, and then we had 9 years off. And then we finally were gifted A Year in the Life on Netflix, so you were able to go back on screen again. A Year in the Life has some amazing Emily moments, including this one towards the end of the series where Emily starts volunteering at the Nantucket Whaling Museum. So we're going to pull up that clip.
He plunges his barbed harpoon into the whale's back. And then with the killing irons, they stab the great beast repeatedly in the neck to stop it diving and make it bleed to death all the faster. They then cut the tail tendons, immobilizing the whale. Later in history, they'll invent an explosive lance that combines the stabbing of the lance with an explosive that detonates once inside the whale. But at this point, it's just lots and lots of stabbing. Well, by now, the whale is spouting buckets and buckets and buckets of blood. I'll give you all a moment.
My. I had forgotten that. I'd actually forgotten that scene.
It's such a great scene.
I mean, I remember working at the Whale Museum and thinking, what is she thinking? Yeah. But that's a good scene. My goodness.
It's so great. And I just think it really captures Emily's
Madness.
her madness for sure, but also the fact that she's even volunteering there, her redemption story, and how she processes grief and becoming a widow and loneliness and navigating a new relationship with Lorelai all throughout that series. To me, Emily's character arc is one of the best on TV. And I know you've said, even on stage today, that Emily is a great villain. And as I get older, and then when I watched Year in the Life, I cannot put her in that box personally. And I'm just wondering, do you still think of Emily as a villain?
Well, I had a great advantage in the horrible disadvantage of losing Ed, because as soon as they were putting A Year in the Life together, I realized I was going to have a completely different storyline because I was a widow. So, of course, what's happened to Emily, and throughout that particular little, they keep calling it a reboot, but then you could see the vulnerability when she talked about not wanting to go to a grief counseling or be with all these other women who were just crying, and suddenly you saw that she was so confused, so bereft, so miserable, that the fact that she got herself to that whaling museum. It's beyond me, but yeah, now we see her as a vulnerable woman. I mean, you still see. I love that. I'm so glad you showed that scene. I hadn't seen that since we did it. I guess it's wonderful.
Well, and in the book too, you mentioned like Emily's grief and her experience navigating the loss of Richard ended up being almost a foreshadowing of your own experience after losing your husband Lee after 6 battles with cancer. And for the audience, here you are with Lee. Looking great. You mentioned in the book about throwing yourself back into your work and talking to a medium to connect with Lee, and then a bit later, COVID hits, and there's this new level of isolation, and during a lunch with Amy and Lauren, you describe kind of the life ahead of you as an empty desert at one point. So you made a decision to start talking to a therapist and work on finding yourself again. And what I want to know is, obviously this is something that many people go through. What would you say to someone right now who's struggling with grief and loss?
It's horrible. We know it's horrible. With my situation and many others, it wasn't a surprise. I can't imagine what it must be like if it's a sudden death. I can't even comprehend it. But I was actually, when I was working on that last group of shows, I remember thinking, what is this, rehearsal? You know, because I knew that Lee was sick and had been off and on for so many years with such nasty cancer, and they're all different ones, and they were not even metastasizing. These were all brand new cancers that would pop up, and watching how courageous he was so brave and so determined to live. I mean, I don't think I would ever be nearly that strong or that brave, but I did speak to a woman, actually, a next-door neighbor's father died, and his wife, I think they've been married for 60 years or something, and she was, of course, devastated. Again, fortunately, or not fortunately, he had been ill, so that there was no great surprise there. But I just saw her, and I don't even know this woman well, but we just hugged, and every time I'd see her, I'd hug her. And then I did go to, they were doing a little get-together, and I went over there, and she said, I said, you have a strong family. Thank God you have a strong family. And she said, I'm going to start doing grief counseling. And I said, that's wonderful. As she said to me, she said, because this is about me, and so I don't have to feel bad when I keep crying in front of the kids. I can just do it for me. And that's wonderful. I mean, that's exactly what she has to do. And the only other thing is, you know, when Lee died, of course I was devastated, and I was torn in a peculiar way. I might have put it in the book, because he was struggling so, his body certainly couldn't sustain him anymore. And when he died, I actually said it to the caregiver, this man that was standing across the bed from me, and I realized there was no pulse. I said, I think he left. I didn't say I think he died. And because I kept, in my image, it was like he was a bird. His soul just was fluttered right out the window because it had to go. It couldn't be sustained in that body any longer. So there was some odd relief for me, for him, that he had finally escaped. That didn't make it any easier. And every time I'd start to get really down about it, and that was fairly often, about how sad I was and how lonely I was and how this, and I said, yeah, you and 100 million other women. Throughout at least 100 million other women have felt that way, and a good many millions of men have felt that way. This is what you have to go through. And it's true that I learned this with my mother. I was devastated by her death. The first year, I just, every anniversary, every 4th of July, every Mother's Day, every birthday, it just gets you again. By the second year, I'd hit those same dates and think, I'm better now. I'm feeling better now. So, and I said, I said the Victorians were right. You should dress in black for an entire year and mourn, and then you can come out of it. And that's basically sort of what was happening to me. Mm-hmm. So you have to go through it. You have to. And if you have good friends, oh, God bless them. That's the best. And whatever you can find to, like this lady who went to grief counseling, bravo. I think that's her brava. I think that's right. If you can find something to distract you or to help you, do it. Do it and forgive yourself those sad moments or those times that you just don't want to meet those people for dinner because you just don't feel like putting on a smiley face. Again, that's the same thing. Love yourself. That's okay. Do it,
Absolutely. That's such great advice. And towards the end of the book and as you had more space and you were able to give yourself that time to go through it, you start to describe your life as feeling full again, having a lot more color, and also you start to pick up more work again, especially after COVID. This time has flown by, so we are going to be at our last question for tonight. I know this is, but I really wanted to end on this one. So your life and your book is built around these I wish moments, and they're coming at the right time. And you hinted at the end of the book that you think you have 1 or 2 more wishes left for your life and your career. Will you share those with us?
Yeah, I want to work. I love to work. I love to work so much. And this is when you know you're in the right place. And this can be any field. It doesn't have to be the entertainment field. Anything. If you really love it, it doesn't feel like work. It wears you out, but and then somebody pays you to do what you love. Mm-hmm. That's magical. I mean, so yes, I want to keep working. I truly want to work until the day I die. And I put it in the book about wanting.
Oh, you did. I had another question. Yeah. I just couldn't get to about that one. there's a character. I've died a couple of times on stage. I think I died on Law and Order SVU. I think I got blown up in a car, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. It was so loud, But in A Little Night Music, there's Madame Armfeld, I believe her name is. She's the one that sings Liaisons, which is, she's just a wonderful character. And I actually love that show anyway. It's very peculiar. It's not a regular show. But at the end, she's in a wheelchair and all the activities going on the stage, whatever they're doing. And they suddenly realize that she's died. They thought she fell asleep and she died. And I thought, if you could do it, you could die right on cue. I mean, I go, wow, what an actress. Wow. That's good. That's good. I mean, other wishes, I want to stay as healthy as I can. I don't do an awful lot to make that happen. But I have a good attitude, and that helps. That helps a lot. I'm going to embrace it until it stops. I'm not afraid of dying, and I don't think I'll live for a very long time. My family doesn't, and I've kind of accepted that. And I have to say, I see really decrepit, sad, really old people, and I don't want to be one of those.
You know, so I'm just keep it coming. I mean, I've been so blessed and so fortunate throughout my life with people and with work and with animals that I'm just, I'll bring it, just bring it to me. I'll take it. I just love it. I'm happy. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
I adore my job and still can't get over the fact that it brought me on stage with you tonight.
Oh.
Kelly Bishop, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.